What's up, cool people? I'm Matt Conroy. Welcome back to our Bible study. So, we've got Exodus 38 lined up for right now. Recap of events in the Bible recently. It's pretty much just been, Israelites made it out of Egypt, got to Mount Sinai. God gave them a lot of commandments and directions on how to live in a way that is pleasing to God. They pretty quickly turned away with the whole golden calf incident thingamajig, building that for themselves and worshiping it. But then, Moses came down from Mount Sinai, reprimanded them, wound up basically telling the Levites to kill a bunch of them who were following or, worshiping this other golden calf god thing that they had made for themselves. And after that, they kind of got back on the right track. And so now they're in the midst of building things for the tabernacle. And that's kind of where we get into chapter 38. The, coverings have already been built, and a bunch of the, furnishings, instruments, and all that kind of stuff to go in the tabernacle have already been built, but there's still some other things left to do. So, that's where we get to chapter 38 here. Let's get to it. Next, Bezalel used acacia wood to construct the square altar of burnt offering. It was 7.5 feet wide, 7.5 feet long, and 4.5 feet high. He made horns for each of its 4 corners, so that the horns and altar were all one piece. He overlaid the altar with bronze. Then he made all the altar utensils of bronze, the ash buckets, shovels, basins, meat forks, and fire pans. Next, he made a bronze grating and installed it halfway down the side of the altar, under the ledge. He cast 4 rings and attached them to the corners of the bronze grating to hold the carrying poles. He made the poles from acacia wood and overlaid them with bronze. He inserted the poles through the rings on the sides of the altar. The altar was hollow and was made from planks. Okay, so... Oh, hey, what's up, Adsy? Yeah, I've been doing pretty well. But anyway, yeah, so... This is the altar of burnt offering that, again, God had commanded them to build a few chapters prior, and this is just it actually being built. I'm noticing that it was all, overlaid with bronze instead of, the other stuff that had been overlaid with gold, and that kind of, I'm still kind of thinking, I'm not 100% going to say for sure that this is the case, but I think generally speaking, the different pieces of the tabernacle were made of different precious metals that kind of, the less valuable metal was used for the stuff that was going to be out in the courtyard or sorry for hitting the mic, out in the courtyard or, the outer areas of the general tabernacle space. And then as you get further into the tabernacle and the more significant / more holy places within the tabernacle, the rarity of the metals kind of went up. So there was some silver stuff that was used kind of for the outer part of the broader holy place, as they called it. And then as you get into the heart of the tabernacle, the Holy of Holies, everything was made with gold pretty much, except maybe like the bases for the poles that held it up structurally. But anyway, so yeah, still not 100% sure if that's exactly the case, but it seems like it's roughly like that. So with the altar of burnt offering going out in sort of the courtyard space, that, is why that was made of, or overlaid with bronze. At least, if that actually holds up. Anywho, okay, moving along. Verse 8. Bezalel made the bronze wash basin and its bronze stand from bronze mirrors donated by the women who served at the entrance of the tabernacle. Again, bronze, which would lead me to think that's going out in the courtyard. Wash basin, I don't remember off the top of my head exactly the instructions for where that was supposed to go, but given its proximity to the altar of burnt offering, I'm guessing it was somewhere around there, or, you know what, given that it's a wash basin, maybe that was like kind of right outside the heart of the tabernacle, where the priests would go in to, perform their other priestly duties. So, wash basin right outside there so they could wash off and cleanse themselves before going into a more sacred, holy space. But because it's outside of that, made of bronze. And I'm also realizing I missed footnotes here. That just says he... because in previous chapters and paragraphs, Bezalel was the last person mentioned by name. So even if it said he there, it would have been implied that it's Bezalel, but because of, for the sake of easing things for the reader, I think that's why the translators of this version just outright stated that it's Bezalel being mentioned here. That footnote's just going to be about the dimensions, the cubits and the meter equivalents and that kind of stuff. Footnote down here next to tabernacle, just the Hebrew being tent of meeting. We've had these footnotes a fair bit, so forgive me if I'm somewhat glossing over them because of that. Anyway, alrighty. I'll just move right along to verse 9 here. Then Bezalel made the courtyard, which was enclosed with curtains made of finely woven linen. On the south side, the curtains were 150 feet long. They were held up by 20 posts set securely in 20 bronze bases. He hung the curtains with silver hooks and rings. He made a similar set of curtains for the north side, 150 feet of curtains held up by 20 posts set securely in bronze bases. He hung the curtains with silver hooks and rings. The curtains on the west end of the courtyard were 75 feet long, hung with silver hooks and rings, and supported by 10 posts set into 10 bases. The east end, the front, was also 75 feet long. Okay, so I guess any of this stuff that was in the previous chapters was actually, not the courtyard area. Which has me a little less certain about my hypothesis, or whatever you want to call it, regarding the different precious metals and which ones were used where. But anyway, I still think that holds up. I don't know. So now I'm trying to think of the various dimensions of the other stuff that was discussed. But obviously, with this being the courtyard, it's going to go out around and past the more holy tent, you might call it. which you could just call that the Tabernacle, I guess, because, courtyard isn't necessarily, the same as the place itself. I don't know. Anyway, more footnotes about units and lengths and stuff like that. So, at least as far as the courtyard is concerned, the north and south ends were exactly double the length of the east and west ends, which were supposed to be the front and the back entrance, east was the entrance, west was the kind of back of it, so to speak. So again, we kind of talked about in a previous chapter that, that's generally how a lot of bigger tent things are laid out, where you've got, the entrance being kind of a shorter side than other sides of it. But if you're trying to keep it, even, symmetrical, whatever, you've got the two ends that are the same length, and then you got the other two sides that are longer than those. But anyway, okay, moving along to verse 14 then, I guess. The courtyard entrance was on the east end, flanked by two curtains. The curtain on the right side was 22.5 feet long and was supported by 3 posts set into 3 bases. The curtain on the left side was also 22.5 feet long and was supported by 3 posts set into 3 bases. All the curtains used in the courtyard were made of finely woven linen. Each post had a bronze base, and all the hooks and rings were silver. The tops of the posts of the courtyard were overlaid with silver, and the rings to hold up the curtains were made of silver. See, in practically every other spot in the tabernacle, those rings and posts and all that stuff was pretty much all gold. Maybe not exactly all of it, but a lot of it. So, yeah, anyway. I don't really have too much else to say there. I was just, again, thinking about the different metals and which ones were used where. Thinking through in my brain logically whether that idea still holds up. So, verse 18 then. He made the curtain for the entrance to the courtyard of finely woven linen, and he decorated it with beautiful embroidery in blue, purple, and scarlet thread. It was 30 feet long, and its height was 7.5 feet, just like the curtains of the courtyard walls. It was supported by 4 posts, each set securely in its own bronze base. The tops of the posts were overlaid with silver, and the hooks and rings were also made of silver. All the tent pegs used in the tabernacle and courtyard were made of bronze. Tent pegs, meaning like to secure it to the ground, I guess? That's normally what I think of when I think tent pegs. So, yeah, okay. So this curtain here was kind of like the official entry curtain, I guess, as opposed to these two curtains. Like, I'm getting a sort of picture in my head of, you would have had the main structure of the tabernacle, courtyard, and then, where it kind of came together on the one side, the entrance, might have been an opening initially, but then there were these two curtains that, came together kind of just, draped, I guess is the term, kind of just draped down over that entrance where people would maybe like kind of, push those apart to enter. And then I'm trying to think. So then this curtain, I'm wondering what that would have been. Was that maybe another one to kind of like cover the entrance completely, maybe go like in front of the other two curtains for like when they wanted to kind of say, okay, Tabernacle's closed for the day or something. I don't know, maybe. But in any case, this one, it seems like there was a lot more care and craftsmanship put into this curtain. So it kind of makes me wonder exactly what its purpose was, and I'm not like it's not super obvious in my head. If somebody else happens to know, feel free to leave a comment. But yeah, otherwise I don't really have too many other thoughts. Again, footnotes are probably just going to be about the measurements. So I think I'm going to move along to verse 21 then. This is an inventory of the materials used in building the tabernacle of the covenant. The Levites compiled the figures as Moses directed, and Ithamar son of Aaron the priest served as recorder. Bezalel son of Uri, grandson of Hur of the tribe of Judah, made everything just as the Lord had commanded Moses. He was assisted by Aholiab, son of Ahisamach, of the tribe of Dan, a craftsman expert at engraving, designing, and embroidering with blue, purple, and scarlet thread on fine linen cloth. The people brought special offerings of gold, totaling 2,193 pounds, as measured by the weight of the sanctuary shekel. This gold was used throughout the tabernacle. Pause there real quick. I'm trying to remember. You know what? I'm actually going to go back to the previous chapter real quick because it mentioned the lampstand. Yeah, the lampstand had 75 pounds of pure gold, but still, 75 pounds out of the 2,000 plus. I mean, it's a noticeable chunk of it, but still not like a major amount of it. When I kept talking about how much gold went into this stuff, this is what I mean. That's a lot of gold. But also, though, gold is a pretty heavy metal, so like volume-wise, it may not be quite as much as I was thinking. I don't know. Anyway, footnote there gives the weight in talents and shekels, because that was the Hebrew unit of measurement. Each shekel weighed about 0.4 ounces or 11 grams. So this is where you get an understanding of kind of the conversion and how they, converted the talents and shekels into kilograms here and pounds here. So I guess this last bit is just kind of saying hey, here's all the stuff that went into the making of the tabernacle. So we got a tally of the gold. What about all the other materials? Verse 25. The whole community of Israel gave 7,545 pounds of silver, as measured by the weight of the sanctuary shekel. The silver came from the tax collected from each man registered in the census. The tax is 1 beka, which is half a shekel, based on the sanctuary shekel. The tax was collected from 603,550 men who had reached their 20th birthday. The 100 bases for the frames of the sanctuary walls and for the posts supporting the inner curtain required 7,500 pounds of silver, about 75 pounds for each base. The remaining 45 pounds of silver was used to make the hooks and rings and to overlay the tops of the posts. So this is getting more specifically into like what the silver was used for. Whereas with the gold, it just kind of said, yeah, it was used throughout the tabernacle. I mean, you can read back into previous sections to see what exactly it was used for if you're really curious about it. But, I mean, so the gold was used for the Ark of the Covenant, the lampstand, the table and its utensils, I think, inside the tabernacle, as well as there was gold overlay for a bunch of different poles and other things like that. But then silver, so a lot of the silver was used just for the bases of the tabernacle structure. It's 75 pounds for each base, which means there were 100 bases. Quick math there. So, yeah, there's a lot going into this. But also, so all that just came from the, kind of census tax. So half a shekel times 603,550 men apparently gets you to that many pounds of silver. I mean, 100 talents and that many shekels. So, yeah, anyway. Okay, no, I'm not going to dwell too much on, trying to break down the math. Let me get to verse 29 here and then wrap this up. People also brought as special offerings 5,310 pounds of bronze, which was used for casting the bases for the posts at the tabernacle, or at the entrance to the tabernacle, and for the bronze altar with its bronze grating and all the altar utensils. Bronze was also used to make the bases for the posts that supported the curtains around the courtyard, the bases for the curtain at the entrance of the courtyard, and all the tent pegs for the tabernacle and the courtyard. So bronze was used in the tent pegs, the posts that supported the curtains around the courtyard. So all this previous stuff was just for the main kind of what I've been calling the heart of the tabernacle, which I guess is usually just called the tabernacle as you read it in the Bible. But then the courtyard used all this bronze stuff because, again, it was further out than the actual tabernacle itself. Bases for posts at the entrance to the tabernacle. Okay. And that leaves me unsure that if it's talking about, the heart of the tabernacle, as I've been calling it, or just the actual, main entrance area to everything. Although it mentions the entrance to the courtyard specifically here, so probably the former option of what I just mentioned. So yeah, that seems to wrap up all the building of the tabernacle. Its other footnotes here are just weight, measurements in their original Hebrew and stuff again. But yeah, it seems like that's wrapping up the actual building of the tabernacle. And so now that that's done, I'm not quite sure what's going to come up next, but we'll just have to find out when we get to the next chapter. All right, so that's going to do it for now. I guess we're done with the building of the tabernacle. Yeah. And I gotta say, I mean, even though I had read through, like, the inventory of the materials, I guess I just hadn't really paid it too much attention previous times reading through the Bible. Like, you kind of knew it was a lot of stuff, but daggum, you know? Anyway, okay, that's it for now. As always, like and share if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe and click the bell to get updates when I post new videos to my channel. Look down in the description for info on other social media pages and how to find and follow those. And, of course, leave comments down below all that with any thoughts you have. So that's it. Hope you're all doing well. Hopefully I'll see you for the next video. But until then, stay cool, people.